Video được Việt hóa bởi Ngọc Tân từ group tài nguyên dựng phim.
Welcome back. In this section, we're going to be talking about the general workflow of post-production inside of Resolve and how you take a project from beginning to end all inside of the app. So we've been talking about all of the different things that you do in post-production, from color correction to editing to media management to graphics and effects, all of this stuff, and how it all happens inside of Resolve. But the way that you do it in Resolve is sort of in a specific order. And again, this is really kind of the order of post-production in general. So the first thing that happens is you obviously record your footage. After that, you're going to do some kind of media management. And so that's taking your footage from your camera cards and putting them on your system somehow. It's organizing them into folders, whether that's actually folders on your system or even just inside of your editing app. You're getting organized in some way. Next comes the editing phase, where you actually take your media and you decide what parts of it you want to use, what parts you want to throw away, and the order that things are supposed to go in so that you can make a story. From there, generally, you'll go to do your effects if there is anything that you need to change about a shot. So let's say you need to clone out a person in a wide shot that you didn't really want to be there, or it's even doing fancy things like adding lasers and lightsabers and all of that stuff. That would happen after editing so that you know what parts of each clip you need to actually do the effects on. Graphics, I put here, they don't really have to be necessarily here, but they generally will happen in the same app that does effects, because the tools used to make motion graphics are a lot of the same ones that you'd use to make effects, and they generally happen in the same type of app. And you won't usually make your graphics before you make your edit. Again, you kind of want to know what graphics you need, what little beats in the story you need those things for. Once your editing is done and all of your effects and everything are together and your story pretty much works and looks mostly the way it should, then you go into color. Color is all about kind of the final tweaks, making sure everything looks visually how it's supposed to. That means 2 different shots that were shot with different exposures, you balance out the exposure. It means if a shot is supposed to look like it's nighttime and it's really bright, that you darken it down. And that all the shots kind of look like they belong together in the same world. That all happens during color correction, again, after all of your visual stuff is put together. Then we have audio, and this can happen alongside color if you want. It doesn't necessarily have to happen after or before color. It does have to happen after your effects and graphics and editing are done, because sometimes you'll have an effect like an explosion and you won't know when the explosion happens until you have the effect done. And so that's when your audio mix, or at least your final audio mix, is finished. Then all of that stuff goes together in the same timeline and it's rendered. Rendering is basically just taking everything that you have in your project and making it so somebody can actually see it. So it's making it into a file for YouTube, or that you can play back on a computer, or even making something like a DVD. That process of converting all of these pieces into something that you can actually watch or distribute is called rendering. And that's really how you take a project from you recorded something all the way through getting organized, editing your story together, making sure all the effects and graphics are there. It looks the way it should, it sounds the way it should, and now somebody can actually watch it. And no matter what kind of workflow you're using, stuff pretty much happens in that order. And how that works in Resolve is each of these major jobs of post-production is assigned to a page. A page is like a section of Resolve that is dedicated to one of these jobs. So media management, renaming things, adding notes to things, previewing clips, putting them in folders, making sure everything is where it should be, is media management, and that happens in the media page. Editing happens in the cut or the edit pages. All of these pages we're going to go over here in a few minutes, but it's important that you kind of understand why these are split up like this. The effects and graphics, together I would call that compositing. That happens inside of the Fusion page. That's, again, a dedicated interface to make really cool, fancy stuff like effects and graphics. Color correction happens in the color page. Audio happens in the Fairlight page. And all the rendering happens in the Deliver page. And you generally go from left to right because that's sort of the order that kind of has to happen. You can't really manage media until you record it. You can't really edit anything until you have media, and so on. So let's take a look at the Resolve interface. We're going to look at how to set up a project here in a minute. But for now, take a look down here at these pages. These should look familiar. Media, Cut, Edit, Fusion, Color, Fairlight, and Deliver. And as you click on each page at the bottom of the interface will change to focus on whatever post-production job the page is designed for. So color, we have all of the color correction tools. For editing, we have timelines, and you can get to your media. In the media page, it's all about finding media on your system and previewing it and looking at all of the information for your media. Fusion is about doing really fancy things with nodes, which we'll get into in a little bit. Fairlight is all about audio mixing and audio effects and things like that. The Deliver page is about taking your final project and exporting it so people can see it. And each of these pages not only is a different layout, it's literally like a different app built into Resolve. In fact, Fairlight for a long time has been a standalone audio workstation. Kind of like you think of Pro Tools, Fairlight is its own thing, and now it's integrated into Resolve. Same thing with Fusion. Fusion has been kind of its own thing, sort of like After Effects or Nuke. It's a really high-end compositing app that's now built inside of Resolve and available for free. So each of these pages has a specific focus on post-production, and it's not just laid out to do it, but it actually has kind of a different engine under the hood to drive those kind of things. But here's what's really cool about having this all together in Resolve. Not only can Resolve do all of these things, but all of these things share the same timeline, and you don't have to render things out and export them in between your different apps. So normally what you would do is take your editing app and export into your compositing app and make a new video. And then you do all of your stuff in your compositing app and make a new video and put it in the editing app. And then you make a new video and put it into the color app. And then you make a new video and bring it back into your editing app. And then you make a new video, and so it gets really wild doing that. In Resolve, I can do my editing in the edit page, but if I want to be really detailed and meticulous on my audio, I can just click on the Fairlight page. And now I'm in crazy audio mode, where I can go in and get insanely detailed with my audio. If I want to focus on color correction, I don't load effects or, do my color correction in the edit page. I just switch over to the color page and I can do my color without having to render or do anything crazy. I can just do some color adjustments and then switch back over to the edit page and keep editing. And so it's really fast. If I want to do something fancy in the Fusion page, I can just switch over to Fusion and work on the shot that I was over in the edit page. Say I want to add some fog. I can add that fog in the Fusion page and switch back over to edit. And there it is in my timeline. Again, I don't have to render or do anything weird. It all kind of lives here in the timeline. And the timeline is shared in between all of these different pages.
Video được Việt hóa bởi Ngọc Tân từ group tài nguyên dựng
So
phim.
what's really neat is that even though these are laid out in the traditional order, you don't actually really have to use them in the traditional order. You can kind of move back and forth as you please. You could do some editing and then do some basic color correction and do a little bit more editing and then go work on the audio and then go and mess with your effects and then go back to editing and then do the audio for those effects. It's really up to you, and it gives you a lot more freedom when it comes to your workflow for post-production. So that's really the first major concept of Resolve specifically, is that it's split up into pages, and each page has a very specific job, and they all share a timeline together to make things a little bit more easy and give you a lot of freedom to be creative.
Video được Việt hóa bởi Ngọc Tân từ group tài nguyên dựng phim.